I've been coming here to various ICT events for 3 years now, and every time there's always something special, something different. How many of you saw the tiger this morning? How many? You saw a tiger this morning? No, there was a tiger here, right here. You don't believe me? I took a picture. Actually, I took this picture in Hyderabad. But now you believe me? There was a tiger here. No? It says Bridge 19 right there, stairs. He caught me. Also not a tiger. But I'll tell you what, this is a little sleight of hand. Anyone can now take a photo like this on their phone, right? You have amazing ability to animate objects and put it in front of you. If I was better, this would have been, I could have done it again this morning and you might have taken another 5 minutes to figure it out. If I had more skills with my camera, maybe I could have taken a video and shown you that video. But anyone can now do this with your simple Android phone, right? This is augmented reality. Right? The reason I bring that up is because we're talking about learning in an augmented age. The augmented age that we were talking about, the future where we can live to 150 years, a little bit of that future is here already. This is an example of that. And there are more relevant examples, more real examples. There are two things that I will share with you. About 2 weeks ago, I saw this at an auto company that we visited in Chennai. Some of you can see this way. But as a mechanical engineer, this astounded me. Today, you don't any longer need CAD CAM at the same level of detail. You can take your mobile phone and point it at an engine, and you can see the 3D explosion of your device. Right? People are doing that today. They're augmenting reality in ways that are very useful and practical. It has shortened design times for auto companies. It has done some amazing things. Similar thing, you can see this image of the circulatory system. Right? In medicine, it's changing lives in all kinds of learning. And many of these things are actually, you can try this at home. The same strategy that I did to use that tiger, you can take your Android phone and show your children how the human body looks and the various skeletal systems and circulatory systems and things like that. This was so confusing for us when we were children. I'll tell you, my automobile engineering class, I really struggled. I never understood how a differential worked. Until 2 weeks ago, I went and watched this animation and then I said, oh, that makes so much sense. That's the reason I didn't stick on as an automotive or mechanical engineer. But so much power is there in this kind of learning. And some of us should be worried, right? There are now teachers that are robot teachers that are being deployed. This is a school in Bangalore, and it was in the news a few weeks ago. You can actually put a teacher in front, and a lot of the functions of the teacher, particularly if you're a teacher who's just going through the curriculum in a rote manner, can easily be robotized. This is a robot who can answer questions. Somebody can put up their hand, the teacher will recognize that person and say, yes, what's your question? Student can stand up, ask a question, and the teacher can provide an answer to the best of their ability. We are actually using techniques like this in our platform. So this is not, it's not just a future thing that somebody is doing, a futuristic thing. When we do online learning for English language, we use artificial intelligence in this way. We capture responses from users, analyze those responses, we provide feedback based on our responses. We don't have a robot that we can bring to your college, but all of these other functions can be done in your computer. This is futuristic, but I'll take a minute to talk about history. I represent STEP. STEP is a division of the Hindu group. It's been around for 140 years. If you've seen the Hindu newspaper, you know who we are. 140 years ago, the Hindu was founded with the idea that we should speak truth to power. British were ruling us 140 years ago, and there were a group of people who got together and said, if we have to speak to these Britishers, we need to speak to them in a language they will understand. So the Hindu was published as a nationalist newspaper to represent Indian voices in English to the British. That's something that we think of as very core to our DNA. and it's still an important part of what we do. So STEP is our newest venture in this regard. Our focus is on empowering Indians in English and continuing the social mission of empowering Indians in English. We've reached, that number says 7.5 lakh Indians, but we've reached more than 13 lakh Indians today across the country, schools, colleges, people who sign up online to our programs, and many companies that we work with to upskill their students and employees in English language and communication skills. Now, this is happening in a world where a lot is changing, right? There's urbanization, climate change. There are people will talk all day about shifts in technology trends and global economic power. A lot is changing, and when your students go out into the real world, they're going to be in a different world. They're going to be in this augmented age where there is big data, high degree of personalization in products, mobile classrooms. I mean, this already exists today. You can think about, every one of us in this room has a mobile phone. But the way we've set it up, no two mobile phones are alike. Right? If I take your phone and I start trying to use it, it'll take me a few minutes to figure out. That level of personalization was not possible 5 years ago. Right? And this is a simple example. Tomorrow, the same thing will be true for your car and so many more things. So this level of personalization, 3D printing is going to enable some of these things. There are a number of technologies. I mean, there are others better suited than me to talk about these things. But the key thing from my perspective is, what is this going to do to the skills that your students are going to require when they go out into the real world, right? What skills are they going to need now that they didn't have before? And so there was this study done a few years ago by the World Economic, and they identified a number of skills that are important. What do you think is interesting here? Anyone who wants to point out what's interesting, what's missing in these skills? Any thoughts? There are no technical things mentioned. That's interesting, isn't it? And all of us here are in the field of technical education, and we're wondering, we're going to put these students out into the real world. There are no technical skills mentioned in the skills of the future. Now, that's not, they have said that, but I'm sure that's not strictly true. Technical skills are going to be required, but even more important than those technical skills, that's going to be the basis. Technical skills everyone is going to require, but even more important than that is these things around complex problem solving, critical thinking, cognitive flexibility, judgment, decision making. Every one of these things is going to be a critical skill for the future. Now let me ask the question to you. What are you doing in any of these areas as a college? It's a tough question, and I know there are many, many constraints in understanding. So every one of these skills that we highlighted there are skills that are going to require high levels of cognitive ability, right? Things that were routine and mundane could be repeated will all now go away to computers. I think we were having, Mr. Kumar just presented to us an example of how they're using chatbots within their organization. In the past, to simplify a process, it might have taken more people to simplify the process. Today, it takes less people, right? So there are all of these examples of cognitive skills. And the one thing I will say that sometimes we miss is that language is the key to unlocking these cognitive abilities. Right? Every one of us has innate cognitive ability. When you, as parents, you would have seen your own children. As the children grow, their language picks up. As the more words they are, the more words they know, the more curious they become for a while. Using language is critical to unlocking this cognitive ability. And so that's an important skill that we must inculcate in every one of us. You need to be able to listen, speak, read, and write, and that's what allows you to process thought that we both receive thought as well as share your ideas. And there's no question today, I don't think anyone will argue this today, that English is the language of the workplace, right? And in fact, we did a survey recently, and we interviewed employers all over the country, and almost 80% of them said English language communication skills are critical, important, or at least important or very important in our hiring decision, right? And that's what we bring to you. Now, unfortunately, we're not very good at this, right? Not just as a society, we're not very good at building skills. Because how do our school students treat it? They treat English not as a skill, they treat it as a subject, right? This is a subject where I have to pass my mark, right? And this is how it has been throughout our lives. In fact, if you think about students in your college, many of them are saying English is a subject that I just need to get through. It's really, I'm going to get a technical degree. Right? And, you know, I don't blame them. I think it's our entire ecosystem around this that has to imbibe this thing. So what happens? How do you usually learn a language? How did you learn your mother tongue when you were a child? Did your parents have a blackboard and A, B, C, D? No, right? None of us learned like that. You listen, you sit in you're a child, you're at home, people around you are talking, you copy them. Right? So the first skill, the way people learn language, easiest way is to listen, and then you copy them, that's speaking. So listening and speaking should come first. And then once you are able to listen and speak, you read and write. Right? That's the natural way and fastest way anybody can learn a language. Unfortunately, that's not how we are taught. For most of us, that's not how we're taught English. Most of us, the first interaction with English is you go to your, nowadays, a KG classroom, and in the KG classroom, they're teaching A, B, C, D, they're writing it, they're teaching you A for apple, B for ball. This is how English is still mostly taught today. Some advances have been made, we're using phonics and things like that. But for the most part, what is missing is that exposure to speaking and listening, right? In fact, I would say what we do today is we are learning English in reverse gear, right? We try to teach writing first, then reading, then listening, then speaking. And unfortunately, that's a problem that we've got to solve. And I think that's one of the things you will see as students struggle to fulfill their potential. The communication gap is very real, and a big part of this is their lack of English language communication. And this is what we think. It's not that people can't pick up these skills. We've seen this everywhere. A number of colleges that we go to, schools we go to, where within a short period you can make a substantial improvement in language proficiency. It's changing this approach of how we're teaching and how we're expecting people to acquire language skills. That's the important part. It's hard because these cognitively demanding tasks, it's hard to create this in a classroom. It's hard to teach people how to analyze and summarize data and tell it as a story. All of these are the real skills that they're going to require when they get to the workplace. I think many of you sitting in the front row from various corporates can probably relate to this. That a lot of what you're doing every day is making presentations or telling a story or debating and discussing and making a point. Your technology knowledge is important, but unless you have these, you're not actually going to be able to make that impact in your workplace. A typical classroom across the country, a typical classroom has this lecture orientation, it has rote learning, it has one-word answers. I was giving this example to someone. We are so tuned to this that recently we did a training program in a college. I won't tell you the name of the college, but somebody from that college called me immediately and said, "Sir, we have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Sir, your classes, students are talking a lot during your class." I said, "Sir, it's an English-speaking class." But the expectation that students will keep quiet and listen is so deeply ingrained into our system, that people find it difficult to adjust to this matter that students will be talking in our class. And they need to be, because otherwise that practice doesn't happen. So, of course, I talked about what are the challenges. I also recognize that in a college, it's very difficult to change some of these things. We have demands from AICTE and UGC and your university and schedules and, your college bus needs to leave at a certain time. So I understand all of that. So there are a lot of challenges associated with this. But I think you'll agree with me on this that we have limited access to quality resources. There's a way we can provide that access, we can really change. So how would we do this? I'll share what we've done. In fact, this is a couple of design principles in all our programs. One of the things we focus on is what we call, I'll say these things, it's easy entry, it's adaptive learning, and blended learning. So easy entry, what do I mean by that? I mean, for a student, one of the limiting factors in that learning English depends on the university, colleges. Some of these colleges have students who already come with fairly advanced skills, but students who are new, coming from a vernacular background or from a second language type environment, for them you need to give them some easy entry point, right? Something that gives them some immediate success in learning, right? That's appropriate to their level. So that's the easy entry piece that we do. Make sure that for the lower skills, some quick motivation is important, because motivation drives stickiness. Adaptive learning, which is the second part, which is one of the things we've realized is all of us have learned some English. Even the children who are coming to college from a second language, from a, let's say, Tamil or Telugu medium school or something like that, would have done English as a second language, right? So they have enough words and enough vocabulary. What they don't have is little bits and pieces here and there that specifically need focus. So that's the adaptive learning that highly personalizes content specific individuals. So that's important. And blended. I think we also realize that there's a lot of places where digital only does not work, right? Particularly at lower attainment levels, we have to supplement the digital learning with a classroom environment. And that's a big part of what our approach is. So this is actually data that we have collected from a few of our implementations. About 5,000 students, or I want to say 3,500 students were there in this sample. And we've done it, one of these colleges in Andhra, another in Tamil Nadu, where we've shown what is the impact we've been able to make. So we measured throughout our programs, we give everybody a baseline test and then we give them a test at the end. And we measure the progress between the baseline and the endline test. So these design principles lead to a actual measurable significant impact in language proficiency. One of the key elements of this measurement is this benchmarking assessment that we talked about. This is also the benchmarking assessment that Anbu was talking about earlier today. So when we talked about the National Communication Skills Challenge, the STEP Plus assessment is the assessment that we will share during that challenge. It's benchmarked against global standards. The Common European Framework of Reference is the standard to which all tests are built, whether it's IELTS or TOEFL or BEC or whoever, and we've built against that same framework. And what we've also collected data on from working with industry is what is the level of language required for different types of roles, right? So when your students participate in the challenge, they will each get one report that highlights where they stand, and what we will also provide is a college level report that highlights where your students stand against others, right? So one of the key things, as I said, in making this work is to first start benchmarking your students. Learn where they are standing today so that we can design an intervention around it. The second piece is around improving access to quality resources, both digital learning resources as well as classroom teaching. Wherever possible, this is something that we do. We go into colleges, we have online learning content, we have our trainers and teachers who come in from our program, from the Hindu, to come to your college and train. Right? And I think the last dimension, I mentioned this a little earlier, was personalized support. Right? Every student has a different experience. Somebody told me once that it takes about 3,000 words to have a comfortable conversation in English. That's all you need. You need to know about 3,000 words. And this was done by a piece of research that was very interesting. And now the interesting thing is, most people in India, even if like in a typical auto driver in a city like Chennai or Hyderabad, will have 3,000 English words, right? In fact, there are many words for which we don't use the Hindi word or the Tamil word anymore. Light, fan, switch, things like this, they just have more than 3,000 English. And this is true. But what they don't have is some specific gaps in their learning process. What they have these gaps, and those gaps are the gaps that we can come in and fill. To do that, we need to have a detailed understanding of what is their current language level. I mean, of course, when I said the example I gave was an auto driver, but a student in a college, these gaps are easier to identify. They also have much more English than they actually need to have reasonable conversation. It's just that we have to bring it out of them, right? So that's the third dimension. These are the three things we do: benchmark, benchmark against global standards, provide high quality resources, both digital as well as in the classroom, and make sure that all of this is delivered in a personalized way. That's really all I had. I think the one thing that I would really, before I leave, encourage you to do is to take advantage of this National Communication Skills Challenge that we're talking about. We're making it available to 100 students from each college. Please take it back to your college and make sure that you have your students participating. We'll be happy to share that data with you once that program is over. And hopefully we can create, through programs like this, a step change in communication skills that will be required for the future for your students. Thank you very much.